Great to see everybody here today. Thanks for being here today. You know, it's wonderful to see. Almost looks like everybody is here. Usually we have a few more holes in the room. So thank you for being here, representing your region, your local government, and supporting the very important Rappahannock-Rapidan Regional Commission. Please join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Patrick, can you confirm that all? You do. We got it. Kind of do an eye check and see that full run. Next is approval of agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Distributed prior to the meeting?
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Second. Second. Okay. Motion been made second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Agenda is approved. Public comment is next. Are there any members of the public who'd like to address the commission today? Or any comments received prior to the meeting?
We didn't receive comments prior to the meeting.
Anyone like to address this today? Not here, okay. All right. The first item today is presentation of the draft Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, RRRC. Dan Gunderson and Alex Chandler from the Camoin Associates are here with us virtually to review the work completed over the past 15 months. Patrick, do you have any introductory comments?
No, the only comments I would make echo what's in the cover memo. It's been a process, 15 months since beginning to work with Dan and Alex and Camoin, but it's been a much longer process from getting the grant from USEDA and the discussions that have been around this table. So I'm excited to have this kind of final draft presented and begin the work beyond that. This work that's been done in the last 15 months. So Alex, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Patrick. And thanks everyone for joining us here today. Just before I get started, my sound is okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, what we are gonna run through here today, I know ahead of time you've received the full report and some of these slides, so we are gonna take a rather high level approach and go over things at a high level, but we did wanna really reflect and sort of show the process in terms of how the plan was developed, all the work that went into it, and really how to use the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, or the CEDS. I know that there's a few new commissioners, and so I think it's important to just return back to why this effort is valuable, how it's going to be used in the future, and in terms of building partnerships and collaborations across the region. This document has, over those 15 months, I think it's done a really good job at strengthening some of the already existing partnerships, and there's certainly opportunity to continue to grow those and bring more partners and stakeholders into the fold. So we'll talk a little bit more about the context, what is actually in the plan itself, how that will be implemented, and then next steps, and hopefully on to adoption. So again, just to back up and look at the big picture, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, or the CEDS, is really a regional effort that is supported by the Economic Development Administration in an effort to really get municipalities, counties, localities to work across political boundaries. Economic development has taken such a turn towards the regional for multiple different regions, but whether it's trying to grow a certain industry, connect supply chains, think about workforce, all of those happen within our own localities, but then have their own dynamics next to our neighbors as well. And so really thinking about, we're setting a vision for the region. Now, while everyone's going to be working towards that vision, it means different things to different parts of this area. So whether it's Madison County or Culpeper or Orange or Fauquier or Rappahannock, there are still the local and local values and local plans that are in place. This is not intended to supersede any of those. This is intended to leverage the assets that exist in those places. And then where it's possible across boundaries to think about growing opportunities between localities. And so between data analysis, engagement across the region, working with many community, political, economic development and workforce leaders, all of that information goes into crafting this strategy and vision. You know, this, again, it has been a thorough 15 months, and right between all of the different vetting and partners and thinking about how this is actually going to function with the partners, I think we've really arrived at a strategy that is well supported to move forward. So briefly here, just outlining a couple of the opportunities. Now that the SEDS is complete, we will, of course, after it is adopted, send it to EDA to be approved. So that's really the final step. But after it is all approved, which we don't have any concern with that, the SEDS really opens up opportunities to access multiple sources of funding, but particularly certain sources of federal funding. Some of that through the EDA, but through other federal departments as well. And that could be within a particular locality, or it could be for the region. So this area is not designated as an economic development district or an EDD. However, if there are locations within the region that do meet certain distress criteria or meet certain criteria, then there's an opportunity to leverage the strategies and opportunities and themes that are in here to be able to apply for certain funds and have a more favorable match that would need to be contributed by the locality. So thinking about how the themes and vision in here align with each of your localities' visions and priorities moving forward, identifying those specific projects that help, again, achieve that regional vision. Certainly an opportunity to seek funding opportunities. Again, we've already talked about setting that regional vision. Oh, Dan, I see you come off. Did you want to add anything before I leave this bullet?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Alex. Not only is it beneficial for localities, meaning municipalities, but it's also beneficial for nonprofit organizations that may be seeking to access federal resources. The fact that they can identify that their region is part of an overall strategy helps with their case before the Department of Labor or Transportation, Commerce, EDA, and others. So it could be a nonprofit organization that is just operating independently and going after funds that support the overall region. And they may or may not go through the regional commission. So it does have a larger purpose here. And that's why so many communities submit these kinds of strategies. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah. I think the last thing to highlight here, and then I'll move on. Certainly, there are many scales of projects that could be pursued with the contents of the SEDS. I think those larger scale investments, so infrastructure, transportation, those are the two really big items that tend to get highlighted, and again, do have opportunities with federal funding, and they tend to cross multiple jurisdictional boundaries. And so I do think those large scale investments certainly have the opportunity to have the greatest impact, unlock economic opportunity for localities, and thinking about how to leverage this for some of those larger scale sort of generational projects is certainly an opportunity moving forward as well. Again, very briefly, just to lay out the work that went into this over the last 15 months. So we had our SEDS committee that was a group of about 25 people or so that vetted and worked with us all the all the way along this process, that looked at the data that we engaged with, that helped us with reaching business owners. And so it really has been driven by local and regional voices. We've got our data analysis, all of which I would say is certainly useful to use again on an individual level. It's certainly helped inform the strategies, but it helps tell the story of what's happening across the labor market, certain industries. And so I would urge you to consider that a tool and a resource in addition to the strategy. We were on the ground a couple of times and did interviews and went around the region and talked to many of you in the room. We did our business survey that went out through several of the chambers. The most widely sort of reaching engagement, this draft that you would have seen, it went out to public comment in sort of end of April to May. And so that would have been the plan as a whole, has gone out to the full public. We did receive about 4 to 5 comments that were thoughtful and, you know, presented certain perspectives. And so that's all been incorporated and contribute to the plan as well. Just to highlight a couple of things here. So one of the components of all of this work is a SWOT, which, you know, we wanted to think about from the perspective of the region. That's a scale that we're working on. And so you can see here, we highlighted some of the major economic topics that either have a high, moderate, or low perceived need and or opportunity. So, right, we're looking at areas where there might be gaps and we need to fill, or there's areas where there's assets and we can build on those. So those are an opportunity. So we looked at those across the region in addition to by locality. So obviously this has very different applicability to different parts of the region for various different reasons. And just because something is indicated as a high need does not necessarily mean, right, that it might be a priority for the locality. So we just want to recognize that this is a sort of a status check and based on the feedback from interviews and things. And so I could see this, right, being adapted or changed over time based on certain projects and investments, but really just to highlight here that we're thinking about things on a local level and on a regional level. Moving ahead here, so this really just highlights our 4 primary goal areas. So we've got 4 goal areas, and then there's initiatives under each of those. There's more detail provided in the plan itself. Big picture, just to summarize the goals, we're looking at expanding market potential for those existing industries. So we want to grow from within, but still be prepared to take advantage of growing markets that maybe could be attracted into the area. Goal 2, we're looking at everything workforce. That was, of course, one of the biggest conversations that we had across this whole period, whether it was training for specific industries, housing, commuting into places. And some of this work has already started to be undertaken by CareerWorks. So these conversations really developed over time, and it's the implementation has already really begun. Goal 3, looking at more of the community level and built environment so that we're creating spaces and places that workers want to be and that businesses want to be. So whether that's commercial centers, downtowns, transportation connections, this is where housing ended up falling. And then resilience as well in terms of environmental and economic. So there's considerations for all of that in that goal area. And then lastly, down at the bottom, we're thinking about infrastructure, critical infrastructure systems that are going to elevate the competitiveness of the region's product. So we're looking at really making sure that there's opportunities to grow and expand and attract within the region. And so work under due diligence and site readiness under that goal area. So it really does cover a comprehensive number of topics within economic development. This is a very holistic take on economic development and sets the groundwork to be able to leverage a lot of these topics moving forward. In the plan, you'll notice in the strategy that we identified the status of each of the initiatives. And so whether it was an emergent strategy, whether it was quite new and needs a lot of work to sort of fully form, whether it was evolving, so whether maybe there's a plan in place, but there's new leadership needed, or maybe funding is needed to advance it. And then furthest to the right in the green was a launch ready strategy. These are things that are currently being worked on. There's a team in place and basically could be ready to launch tomorrow. So you've got an idea of things that are, you know, in the works on one end of the spectrum, maybe needs more attention to drive forward, or the launch ready things that can be focused on in the near term and are ready to go. So all of that is laid out within the plan, and all of that has been vetted and supported, was really driven by the SEDS committee as well. So implementation, how we've got a comprehensive strategy that is going to require a lot of work and a lot of partnership. And so where we go from here, I should mention that the SEDS is a 5-year timeline. So the list on the right there, that is just meant to highlight, that's the partner's legend taken right from the report. Again, this is really an initial list. Many more individuals, entities, players, I imagine, will be involved. This is the initial list, those that were really involved in the planning and would play a role in implementation. SEDS committee will meet at least once a year to touch base on all of the work that has been done. There's also discussions about a core implementation committee, so a smaller group, maybe 5 to 6, that are really the leaders in workforce and economic development, and they'll be on a more granular level moving implementation along. We've got metrics, publicly available metrics that are easily attainable either by one of the entities in the implementation committee. Certainly not meant to be a burden to collect, but something to benchmark progress over that 5-year timeframe. One other piece of this to touch base on, and then I will pause there. In addition to the work that we did for the commission in this region, a part of that is connected to a Go Virginia initiative where we looked at super regional strategies. And so super regional is covering both the Rappahannock-Rapidan region and then the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. And so there are a set of strategies that we're actually presenting tomorrow to Go Virginia Region 9. Those are opportunities that are either going to span the entire region or really have overlap between certain areas. This was a quite novel approach, something that we've seen a couple of times, but we're seeing more and more of. And so I definitely think it's an opportunity to keep thinking super regionally, and where there might be opportunities to, again, further pool resources and think about where those best opportunities might be. I won't go into too much detail. These are the super regional goal areas. Again, they're not going to apply necessarily to every single locality throughout that joint region, but they cross boundaries, and having them identified in this way is going to help advance again, some of the emerging or fledgling ideas that had been discussed, but now we've got them in writing and vetted by the right partners. Just to wrap up in terms of activating the plan, where we go from here, we did already wrap up the 30-day comment period. Obviously, today we are with you all to do this final presentation. We will present super regional strategies tomorrow to Go Virginia. And from there, it's on to implementation, getting approval from the EDA, and then a once annual report to the EDA to update them on progress, which I imagine the commission would be involved in as well. So I'll pause there, open it up to any comments or thoughts before we move on.
Couple of questions. Who is kind of in charge of the super region?
So
If you get putting two of them together,
Right.
who's,
So the origin of that was with Go Virginia Region 9, which covers both our entire region and the entire Thomas Jefferson Planning District region, as that map shows. Thanks, Alex. The way we went into this process originally was neither this region nor the TJPDC region had SEDS, and we both decided this is a good time to do it. And because of the existing relationships, not just with Go Virginia Region 9, but also with Central Virginia Partnership, which covers all of TJPDC and then 3 of our 5 counties, excluding Fauquier and Rappahannock, felt like that was an opportunity to sort of look at some of those things, the goals that were identified there that might not necessarily be EDA funded projects, but are things that are valued by both regions. So that was sort of the piece there. Go Virginia contributed, Region 9 contributed $15,000 for that part of this contract, and so they would be the ones that would oversee those strategies, but it wouldn't be only funded through Go Virginia. There's opportunities for localities or other organizations that tie into those super regional strategies as well. Yeah.
pardon my ignorance, but what's SWOT?
I looked up. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Okay. That wasn't on the acronym list.
And I think one thing that I could underline, if you go back to the locality, thank you, Alex. As Alex said, I think this isn't meant to be, and actually in the SEDS committee meeting, we had a lot of discussions about it looking like a report card. We changed the colors, trying to alleviate some of that, because I think the original colors were, traffic light colors, green, orange, red, or green, yellow, red. But it's also not meant to be a report card or an indication of here's the things you absolutely have to do as a locality. It's really just this is the current situation, and that opens up some opportunities, but it does not indicate at all that you have to do this or else. Certainly not from the regional commission's perspective, but I think also that it's up to each locality to determine what its path forward is, and then what it values and what it wants to make investments in.
When we're speaking of localities, Patrick, I'm assuming that the localities are specific to the counties that are designated in the program. So
Most of the data was collected at the county level. As Alex said, one of the opportunities for our region is in some of those areas of counties, and including Remington, where you may have a lower, higher LMI percentage, or you may have a lower income level. Potentially opens up some additional opportunities. For the purposes of this plan, it was primarily posted at the county.
so there was potential special interest in certain communities of that locality. As you pointed out, like Remington, for example, would have a high LMI rating or a low, whatever perspective you have of. But there was special interest locations within the county that is expressed in the.
I think I would characterize it as where the strategies are fairly broad. It leaves that opportunity there for those areas of, again, areas that may have a lower, not cost of living, but a lower income level or a higher poverty level, or may have more.
That's why I was asking.
To fit in. So I think this is not a in-depth enough where it's got everybody's data that they need for everything that they want to do, but it will
Right.
support some of those things, where there's other activities already going on, I think.
Actually, what is the role of this group in this versus CareerWorks?
It's a really good question. One of the first things I said when we started this with the SEDS committee was, this is not a regional commission plan. We're coordinating it, and there will be some things that come out of this that give us opportunities if we choose to move forward with them. But the people that are going to be implementing this are CareerWorks because they're doing workforce, Germanna and Laurel Ridge because they're involved in workforce and K-12, activity. Central Virginia Partnership, Go Virginia, all those organizations. So I think if you went through the various strategies in there, I would say for this organization, maybe 25% to a third would be stuff where we might say, yes, this absolutely makes sense for us. The rest of them largely are going to fall to other organizations to take the lead on if they feel like they have the capacity and the willingness to do so. And the other thing I would say is the 5-year timeline that Alex mentioned. Not 5 years accomplish all of this. It's 5 years. Here's the things that we think, might be, I don't even want to say achievable, but might be of interest in the next 5 years. And let's sort of show some progress there. So we have a role. And I think even in the moving on to the annual reporting, that's probably a role that we'll take on. But we're not meant to be, doing everything in this.
Alex, have comments to anything?
Alex, do you have any other comments or anything you want to add?
No, the one other thing that is just brought to my mind in terms of the role of the commission or how this applies throughout the region. One of the things that we heard in the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission region was there were a couple, smaller localities that began to see, particularly in the goal 3, the elements of the built environment and the topics that include commercial centers, downtowns, housing. They could really start to see themselves or could see themselves using some of these visions or themes or leveraging some of those particular topics. So while, yes, we looked at this from a regional perspective, I definitely think that there's opportunity on that more local level to think about how some of these topics apply to you and whether that's investments, for water expansion to open up possibilities downtown or whatever it might be. There's certainly applicability on many different scales here. So just to keep that in mind as you move forward.
All right, thank you, Alex. All right, it's left to us to adopt the resolution that's attached, approving the SEDS plan. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Thanks, Rick. Is there a second?
Sure.
I got a short and a second. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Okay, I'd like a roll call vote for this. We're establishing something. Have a roll call vote rather than just a yay.
Commissioner Broadus,
Yay, nay, aye.
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yay.
Commissioner Poyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Curry.
Aye.
Commissioner Donahue.
Aye.
Commissioner Downs.
Aye.
Commissioner Edgerton.
Aye.
Commissioner Hayward.
Aye.
Commissioner Hyde.
Aye.
Commissioner Polk.
Aye.
Commissioner Ramikis.
Aye.
Commissioner Simple.
Aye.
Commissioner Sherman.
Aye.
Commissioner Weekly.
Aye.
And ayes in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7 absent. 14 ayes, 7.
Okay. We don't need a super majority, do we? Motion passes. Thank you very much. And the way I see this is a outline on an umbrella. So to the extent it doesn't fit what someone would like to see or anything else, it's a tool. I see as a tool that will support when it does apply for people, they can utilize it. And I don't think it has to be exactly what everybody wants to be that tool to be used. way I see it.
I mean, I would count it in supporting that statement that we have an active transportation plan that we completed, many of you would remember in 2019. And the commission itself hasn't done much with it, but there's been plenty of letters of support for localities looking for funding for open space or river access or park development out of that plan. And I think that's really the goal there, is to have that in place.
Okay,
One question, Bob. Is this a document that gets massaged over the 5-year period and improved?
I think very much so would be my statement to that. So part of the work that will be done in the kind of annual reporting process will be engaging with those partners and then bringing back to the commission an annual presentation about here's some of the accomplishments that have occurred, if they've occurred. And then recommendations for, any amendments or any changes. And I think that really where I would see that is, this isn't meant to be, we don't know everything, and we certainly don't know what this region or anywhere else is gonna look like in 3 to 5 years, and so we want that opportunity, that flexibility, so.
and I think it'll just get better because of that, Rick. If we continue to work on massage, it should only get better.
I'm sorry, I just returned from a long hiatus, so I'm asking a very simple question. Is this the document that we're referring to, or is there a separate composite report?
In your packet, there's what's the executive summary, and then the presentation slides are also included. There is a large appendix document, but yes, this is
This is effectively what we're offering.
Okay, thank you. The next item is a consent agenda. There are 3 items on the consent agenda: the minutes from the April 17th meeting, year-to-date financials through May 31st, and the resolution endorsing smart scale projects submitted by local governments. And as you know, if you're not in a position to vote to support any of this, what you would do would be to let me know, and rather than voting against it, it would be pulled out and voted on separately. Because I expect what's left in there that no one opposes will be just automatically approved. So if no one has anything to pull out, it'll just be automatically approved. But if you have something you're not happy with, we'll take it to the side and vote on that separately. Okay, any discussion?
I have a question.
Sure, Chris.
Patrick, on the resolution for the smart scale. Is that the current list? That looks like the old list that's already been approved. You've already been approved for those 3 projects.
Correct on that. It's the version.
I'm not looking at the printed.
No, you're correct. I did have to. So what I can say is I apologize. I think for the town of Culpeper, maybe that I will say Culpeper County, Fauquier County, Town of Warrenton, Orange County are all correct. The town of Culpepers are incorrect. You're right. So.
I'm fine with approving with making that change.
And I can share the projects are the ones that were approved by the town council. Did not make it in here. I think probably best to pull that one out from consent agenda and vote separately on that.
Okay. Anyone else? Thanks for catching that, Chris. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Minus one pull out. Which one's there?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Rick. Good, since there's no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. That's approved. And now the separate item would read.
Yep.
I'll take a suggestion, so we worded correctly.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
So the town of Culpeper's projects with the. Chris, if you do have them, please let me. So it would be a roundabout at Ira Hoffman and Route 15 US 15 business. Yeah, roundabout at Madison Road and Germanna Highway. The US 15 business Brandy Road shared use path and intersection improvements corridor project. And would be a roundabout at US 15 business and Walmart intersection or Walmart. Place the three that we listed.
We're just gonna circle some of it.
What's that?
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
The others, as I said, for raise. I think that we really.
You want to defer the item to the end of the agenda? Give us time.
That might be helpful, and I can then, yeah.
All right, let's do that. Let's do that. Then we'll just move on to the executive director's report.
All right, so director's report, I'm going to be pretty brief on the main items, and I do want to provide just a little bit of information on the Foothills Housing at Point in Time count. So for my director's report, main things I want to highlight are we've completed, Mallory Grady has really taken the lead and has completed the rebranding activities. We merged Purely Piedmont and Queen Rivers Trail under a Purely Piedmont brand. Information went out, press release, and showed up in a couple of the local papers. So now any of the agritourism sites that were previously members of Queen Rivers Trail or are using the Purely Piedmont local food brand are under the same umbrella brand there. And so we're using some of the Virginia Tourism Corporation funding through the Marketing Leverage Program grant that we received last year to support that effort. You may have seen we sent the newsletter out last week, and one of the things we're looking for is volunteers to help with urban heat island analysis. And so we've got a grant from Department of Forestry, and this is going to be a volunteer process where we have a volunteer group that goes out July 20th, unless we have rain that day, which seems unlikely at this point. We're going to do a temperature. They're going to be assigned a certain location throughout the region and take a series of temperatures in and around. And the goal there is to get a temperature gauge for different land uses that can show us where some hot spots are in terms of where we might future target tree plantings or other opportunities for reducing temperatures and doing BMPs for through Department of Forestry and DEQ. And then if you have other questions on my main report, I'm happy to answer those, but I do want to go through some of the highlighted information, as I said, for the Foothills Housing for the point in time count. As you know, and some of you have already had presentations from Rebecca Wareham and Matt Tobias, but the point in time count was January 24th of this year. It's always the last week in January. This year's total number was 274, which was a decrease of 1 from last year. As the memo shows, I think we haven't seen a huge change in the last couple of years, but the people experiencing homelessness in the region this year were different. More women and girls experienced homelessness than men and boys. Higher number of adults and children identified as Hispanic or Latino or Latina in the previous 6 years. And then more individuals, this is a question that's not typically asked, but more individuals identified this as their very first episode of homelessness. Nearly half live with or have a disability, a self-identified disability. And then the top 3 reasons that people provide for their current homeless episode are eviction, unemployment or underemployment, and domestic violence. There's some other statistics here. I mean, we've broken them down by each county, throughout the region. I do want to thank, and I know Rebecca would echo this, the support from departments of social services, your other homeless services providers in your area and your counties. That really supported this entire effort. That goes for every county across the region. And I do, again, the numbers here, about a third, a little bit over a third were unsheltered. That includes living in their car or staying in their car overnight on that night. Just a little bit more than a third were in emergency shelter. We have 2 emergency shelters in the region. One's here and 3 during the winter. So we had one here in Culpeper, the Culpeper Housing and Shelter Services, the Family Shelter Services in Warrenton. And then the Encompass ran the winter heat shelter here in Culpeper from November to March of this year. And then sort of the last thing before I'll open it up for questions here is just the kind of 6 year, you can kind of see the trends here of the total individuals has, you know, sort of leveled off the last 2 years after growth during and before the pandemic. You know, except for 2022, it's been pretty consistent in terms of children, which is this lower line, and adults, which is this kind of darker red line. And then the orange line is showing households. There's one error that was my fault. This number right here for adults in 2023 was actually 181, or excuse me, 183 rather than 160. The description guard there on the part. So it does sort of fall in line with what you would expect there. Rebecca, you have any very brief comments?
Yes, just very briefly, I wanted to mention a couple of things, just echoing what Patrick said. It was not only our, you know, great pleasure, but also, you know, Department of Housing and Development in Richmond was extremely pleased to see our area fully participate this year. Every county went out and had membership and every county had members, boots on the ground going out, and that was just thrilling. Also, we added another question, several other localized questions. The largest one being people had we had been getting information and questions from a lot of different member agencies of FHN. Where is everybody coming from? And the belief that everybody had to be coming from somewhere else to give us these high numbers. So we asked what people's ties were to the region, to the 5 counties. And approximately 3/4 of people, so a good 75%, said they were either from here, you know, they were born here, raised here, went to school here, still had family here, they had some connection. So we have maybe 25% that transient, came for jobs that didn't pan out, you know, different things like that. But the bulk of people that we see and that are calling us daily, they're homegrown. They're from here. They're our unhoused neighbors. So I think that was probably the biggest takeaway this year.
I would just like to thank Rebecca and her team for all that she does. Of course, I'm coming from a social services perspective, but point in time count is just one example of all the good work that you all are doing, and getting out there, boots on the ground, and really trying to make sure that we identify folks who are in need and put the services and resources in place to meet the need. Very impressive, so thank you.
I appreciate that. And all of the DSSs, I just, you know, the partnership that we have with them and being able to sometimes assist in avoiding children coming into foster care, I think is probably our best partnership with the local DSS.
Okay. It's all business, I guess.
You may I ask a question?
No, sure.
Is this data broken down just by county, or do you have it down to local specific jurisdictions?
Yeah, we can, typically it's collected by county. I think in the case of, you know, certainly for Warren and Culpeper.
Yes.
We can likely.
I can know that now.
Count level.
Thank you.
Okay,
One other question. Sure. Patrick, I mean, this number is, what do you think the percentage is of people that is unaccounted for?
Yeah, it's a good question. And actually it's somewhat, and I'm gonna see if I can get this large enough here. So the number, some of these, the unofficial person experiencing homelessness is a lot of times we're doing what's called an observational survey. And so the ones here, so for Culpeper, for example, 93, including one unofficial, and Rebecca, please tell me if I'm wrong here, but The 92 are people that we have surveys where they've sat down and gone through the questionnaire and we've got information, including the information that Rebecca just provided. I think where we've listed the total, including the unofficial person experiencing homelessness, is where we've observed an individual but have not had an opportunity to do a formal survey with them, whether they just did not want to, or whether they were, sleeping or unsheltered. And that's who was observed. So I'd say it's a higher number than that, for sure.
Definitely, I would agree. And I would also just say that the numbers are never going to be accurate because, people who have fears of being found for various reasons, whether they have children, whether they think they're on private property by accident, whatever it is, they're going to hide. And so we're not going to know about them. But yes, the unofficial are people, we have a form and it just it's used more for outreach when we get a form, and it details what the person looked like and where they were, so that maybe an outreach person can later in the week or something go try to find them and offer services.
Is there a distinction between military and veteran?
That is an excellent question. We have never had someone respond, they are in the military experiencing homelessness. So I would think that every person who said they were a veteran is out.
Okay. Under old business, are there any updates related to the broadband projects across the region? Like to share. Seeing none, moving on, the strategic planning report was provided to the commission in May. It's included here for discussion and or direction to staff. Are there questions for staff regarding the strategic planning report?
What are the directions to provide? I got a couple of questions for you all, but I have no more. So I think the main things I would want to know from you all, and it doesn't have to be today, but I'll follow up with those you've already emailed to me, but from the recommendations which are on page 13, if there are any of those items or any items that were referenced in the other, in the rest of the document here. Scroll all the way down before all right. So if there's any of the items that were listed, and this was from Mike Foreman in terms of the bold items here. If any of those items are priorities that you want commission staff to really start to drive, our, direction in terms of what you want us to focus on. I don't think we can do all of those, at once, but I think if there are priorities that you feel like we're not working on or that should become a priority, then I'd like to hear that from you all. And then the other question is just, is this enough for you all, or is there a need to continue on this work with strategic planning and sort of mission and vision, kind of looking at what the organization is. I don't have a preference either way, but if there is, that was one of the open-ended, the last bullet point there, a long-term approach to strategic planning, and identifying future opportunities. So I think that would be helpful for me to hear. Again, it doesn't have to be now, but at some point, if you have thoughts on that, I would like to hear that from you.
Okay. Under new business. The first item of new business is the draft fiscal year 2025 budget for the commission's consideration. You will recall a preliminary draft was provided in April, but there are several adjustments outlined here. Patrick, can you review the revisions and then we'll look to questions from the commission members?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So the first one I would say is, as I've shared with you off and on for the past 3 or 4 meetings, the additional funding from the state budget, from the General Assembly and from the governor's office was included at $25,000. So that means that the sort of discretionary money that we received and all the planning district commissions received from the General Assembly and from the state is up to $114,971. So that's still less than what we received in total 20+ years ago, but it's an increase and we're grateful for it for sure. The other changes are pretty minimal and you can see them outlined here in terms of revenues. The biggest change is just we've actually had some increased spending from Fauquier Habitat for Humanity that has drawn down what we initially thought we would have in the PDC Housing Development Program funding, the project funding there. So we've spent that in the current fiscal year, so we won't have to take that forward. So that decreases by almost $100,000. I appreciate, working with the town of Madison on their CDBG planning process. So we were going to contract with them and do some work over the next year. And then you can see continue work with Madison County on the comprehensive plan and then some minor adjustments just on projects there. And so then on the expenditure side, main change is just that decrease in the PDC Housing Development Program expenses based on what we spent this year. We've done some minor adjustments on other projects, including tourism and homeless solutions program. And then also just again, project expenses for the hazard mitigation, which encompasses not just the hazard mitigation line item, but the community flood protection fund expenses, which we're using to support that. Mobility management and then the technical assistance, which is going for our commuter services strategic plan. So, and then just increase in to the payroll line item and like then associated health insurance costs. So that leaves our draft budget at just under 2.5 million for FY 2025. I want to thank Commissioner Sherman. He did point out that the local dues were adopted by the Regional Commission in August of 2023, not 2 months from now. So that is a typo there, but that is that 8% rate has been the same for 10 years. And it represents about 6.3% of the total budget, which means we're pulling in quite a bit of money from other sources outside of the local governments here. So I'm happy to answer questions. It looks like a large change, but most of these are just based on spending that has occurred since April.
I won. Why there occasionally, every quarter, there's a little bump in payroll expense. Why is that?
You're talking about the current fiscal year?
Yeah, just the snapshot for 2024.
Okay. Yeah, let me.
You go on the payroll expense line, and for July and August, it's 44,000, then it bumps up to 71 and sort of. And then it goes back down to 47, it bumps up a little bit.
What's your pay summary?
Yeah, so we pay every 2 weeks, and then about 2 or 3 times a year, we're gonna have 3 payrolls in a month.
I got it.
And so
Yeah.
that's the.
All right.
And also, I will say, like, if it's a July to. I'm gonna pull up the expenses and make sure, is it like in 45?
There you go.
Yeah, so, and even from there to January, so you see the difference between like, July to December and January. Well, July to December to January, 45 to 49. Result of being fully staffed in January, that would not be in where we were previously.
I didn't know whether there might be hiring issues where you have a staff position, but they don't come on board, let's say periodically during the course of the year.
Yeah, and so in this case, and actually Jessica's here, and she was our most recent hire that started in, I'm gonna get this wrong, Jessica, in January. And that accounts for a position that wasn't vacant, but a newly created position based on grant money. So, good question.
I think we have a motion yet. If someone wants to make a motion to adopt the budget, we'll entertain that, certainly.
Make a motion, we adopt the budget as presented.
Thanks, Rick. Is there a second?
So
Okay, any discussion, additional discussion?
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. As the people who put budgets together, there's usually a thank you coming from them. But I certainly thank you as well. Okay, I guess we're ready to vote. All in favor of adopting the fiscal year 2025 budget as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. We have a budget, right? Next, we have information on the U.S. Department of Transportation Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Grant Program.
And this is purely to do a sort of a checkpoint for myself and to ask for your direction in terms of if this is something that would make sense to continue with. We've had some outreach from, there's a new notice of funding opportunity from USDOT for charging and fueling infrastructure. And we've had a couple of localities reach out with, hey, this is something that might be of interest across the region. As the information here says, and I want to make sure I get some of this right. The direction where we could go if there was interest in pulling something together at the regional level and putting in an application would be looking at what they call their community grant program. They've got two different programs. One's community, one's corridor. The community program would really allow us to look at publicly owned, parking lots or publicly owned areas where there would be interest in citing EV charging infrastructure. There's other options there such as hydrogen and propane and natural gas fueling. I think, likely we would be talking about EV charging solely. So I think the questions I would have for you is with the anticipation of kind of developing an application, the deadline is August 28th, so we've got some time to do some background work. I think what I'm asking for today is if this is a really bad idea or you don't want us to be involved in it, then that's what I'd like to know, and I won't have staff put any more time into it. If it is something where you think there would be support or interest across the region, then we would continue to pull together, some of you and staff from local governments to talk about what might be possible and where we might.
If we're interested in doing it, Patrick, in our own communities, do you see this supplemented being a partnership? How would it help? How wouldn't it necessarily help if we're, working individually to do the same thing?
Yeah, so I think, this would be a grant request. There's an 80-20 match so that you would have access to some of the federal funds. The other reason that I would, sort of say if you were looking at this grant specifically is it's got a minimum request of $500,000, which is a pretty significant ask. So if you're doing something locally just on your own, and I know Town of Orange has a charger, I think Warrenton has one in one of their parking lots. So there are some, but in general, this is an area that has a little bit of a
So help us get critical mass and consolidate the paperwork aspect of it.
I think that would be if there's interest.
How would we divvy up among the region if we were all interested, but you had X amount?
I think if the desire was to go forward, that would be questions that I would try to answer in the next 2 months.
Okay. Right.
Do not have an answer for that.
Yeah, mine really, right.
And Vice Chair, I just want to ask around the room because I felt like I got a solicitation of mail from an engineering group that may be in Dewberry or something. So there are outfits out there that are tracking this grant that'll say, we understand you own this property if you're interested in. It was similar around that. So I was just wondering any other localities in this room where you
We
solicited.
had experience with it. They
Okay.
didn't.
Okay. I guess my point being, one, informing there are the other localities, and two, if there are individual localities that want to do it specifically, maybe they have opportunity to do.
We got specific service centers engaged, in our research with the firms that was soliciting us. And found it was a win-win for them and a loss towards us, right, Dave?
Pretty much.
The service centers were not really pleased with the accountability. So we ran them out of town.
Thank you.
This is only on publicly owned land that this program is about, right? So if it's a privately owned, strip mall or something that has some extra ground, that wouldn't work.
Correct. Yeah, I think it's located on any public road or any other publicly accessible location as part of facilities at public buildings must be publicly accessible.
Right, publicly accessible and public road are different than public property.
Right.
So if you've got an investor or developer that has a good piece of ground, would it not be applicable?
As long as they're willing to make the charger publicly accessible, I think it would qualify based on
Legal document.
Yeah. And you may, part of the ability and part of the funding is you may contract with a private entity to do that. I think Henrico got some funding in the first round of this program and has is sort of at the point now where they've engaged or they've gone through an RFP process and engaged with the provider, I think, to install some. I think they're doing therapy at like county parks, but some of these are also questions that I'll take back and can verify for sure.
Certainly, if you're out of the road and you plug into your Tesla, you're going farther than you have distance to go. And it'll tell you, here are the places you can stop. And generally they're in places where there's food, there's something, there's a gas station, not that you need gas, but there's something else there. It's usually private property.
And you know, one of the things, this actually came up a couple of years ago. I remember having a conversation with, it might have been Sam McLaren, the Culpeper planning and zoning director. And I think we came at that point, oh, well, it seems like, you know, you see Sheets and Madison has Tesla chargers, you see them at various places. And so in some cases, the private sector is filling that, and that makes perfect sense. I think this would open up, you know, specifically for some of you, if you've got, you know, county parks or community center complexes, not that you want to have an entire, you know, 50 row of EV chargers, but if it's just an amenity that you wanted to add in, potentially would be an option there. But at this point, like I said, what I'm really asking for is just, if you don't want us to do anything on this, then not. If it all turns into, as I come back in 2 months and tell you, well, we coordinated with people, but we're not ready to move forward, there's enough interest, that's fine too.
I don't see the downside going for it, other than staff time. Right?
And the fiscal agent, who would be doing that piece, or is that once we get into the research?
I think if we get to, yeah,
Okay.
if we get to, August and I come back and say, yeah, here's an application, and we have an answer for that. I mean, it could, if we're the applicant, then it could be us, and I think that would save.
My
all the
next week,
time.
who's getting the revenue? No.
Well, and I think, you know, again, even just talking about it, it's a, you know, minimum award of 500,000 with match of 100,000. I wouldn't presume that the commission is going to be providing the match, and so then that question becomes, and so a lot of those things are things that we want to have answered.
And clarity on this is, I think it says up there, you know, its purpose is reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Then it lists propane and natural gas fueling infrastructure, which are greenhouse gases, you know, when they're burned. So is it electric charging generally and hydrogen?
My guess is, and yes, so yes, that the answer to that is yes. I think probably the inclusion of that is related to whoever would have helped them write the note.
But it can have a revenue component to it. Back to your-
No, I think, I mean, I'll confirm, but I don't think it means you've got to give these away for free.
Yeah.
I think it means you
I
take
hope
on the
not.
infrastructure there. And I mean, I know, for example, there's the one in the town is, Greg said there's no charge for it. I know, I think Albemarle just announced that they have some that have been free, but they're going to start charging. And so I think that would be the model.
Mhm.
I think it would be good to keep going.
Okay.
Just to further understand the opportunity.
I don't want people not coming to Gordonsville because they need a place to go to charge up. I don't want them not to go. I don't think we're going to draw too many there, but I don't want them not to come. Okay, to be continued. And finally, if you recall, the commission's held its annual meeting and awards dinner each fall since the late 1990s. Seems like yesterday. Staff's identified potential date and location and are requesting any conflicts or other direction at this time. Thank you.
So if you remember, we've got an informal rotation. This year we're slated to be in Fauquier County. Monica, who's our kind of office manager, has suggested, and we talked initially with Fauquier Springs Country Club for Wednesday, September 25th, but this is sort of a trip point. Anybody that wants to say absolutely not, or here's other locations, this is the sort of time to tell us, or if that date, if anybody knows there are conflicts, we try to avoid the Intel, Vaco, you know, the LGMA, those sorts of things.
Okay.
And if not, we'll continue to move forward with that plan. And what you'll also see is probably in the next week, a release for nominations for the leadership awards as well. So if you've got anyone that you want to nominate, we're gonna look for into July for those.
I know it doesn't conflict with BML, but you look for obvious conflicts with organizations. Okay, that's great to know. I remember we had it, it's been a while since we were at Fauquier.
Before my time, I've been here.
Yeah, but we have done that before, because it's not before my time. Okay, great. Sounds wonderful. There's no closed session today, so next we have the regional roundtable.
Do we do the deferred?
Yep.
Agenda item that's more tailored?
Right, the thing that we weren't ready
The
to
thing
do.
that we were not ready to for.
When did you find a second to work on it? That's bad.
So,
Oh, I kept thinking all meeting long, I'm glad we deferred it.
yeah, so let me get the resolution up, and I appreciate Mr. Heidling noticing that, because I've not been happy with myself at all. So Culpeper County, Fauquier County, Town of Warrenton, and Orange County, those are the correct projects for the town of Culpeper. We're replacing these three projects listed with a roundabout at US 15 Business and Walmart entrance, roundabout at Madison Road and Germanna Highway, roundabout at US 15 Business and Ira Hoffman Lane, and then US 15 Business corridor project, which is intersection improvements and construction of a shared use path.
Patrick, one minor correction for Orange County. It's Route 20 and Route 611, not 601.
601.
I do have a question. Is the smart scale, which it seems to be a constantly evolving formula, does, if one of us is doing more projects or applying for more, does that at all prejudice the other? Like, are we competing with each other for the same money? Is that the way that really works?
Yes.
All right, then
But they're all
down.
But they're all skinny.
They're-
They're scored, yeah.
Yeah, it's competing based on how they score within the framework of smart
And there's
scale.
always next round.
And the way it's gone, and not to take too long here, but the way it's changed since the last round is that the Commonwealth Transportation Board has made adjustments to what they call the high priority program funding, which is meant to be, which they intend to be for big projects statewide. So Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, so major improvements on, 95 or 495 up around Virginia. Previously, that funding could kind of come down and support some of these projects if they scored well enough. Now, basically what's happening is they've said, no, we want that going to those large projects. And all of these projects, along with anything submitted by the counties in Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, with the exception of Nelson, which is in a different VDOT construction district, are all competing for what they call district grant money. And that's fairly limited. So I would say out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 projects here, plus let's say 15 from the southern part of Culpeper Construction District, maybe a quarter of those will get funding.
Really?
Would be my guess. I could be wrong, but that's historically been about what it is, based on that source. And as you all know, the other thing is all these projects, especially with VDOT estimates, the cost is really, really large, to the point where I think some have turned back smart scale funding because it isn't going to cover the total cost.
Right. All we've got then is the,
We do need to vote on that.
that's, okay, need a motion then.
Yeah, so
Someone say, figured out that, because we left, okay, is there a motion? Did, second me,
I'll second.
motion second discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. Now round table. I'll start. Usually the chair goes last, but I just wanted to say, since I want to announce it now, I have to say what I would normally say the last meeting. It's difficult because I really believe in this regional body and the work we do, and it brings all the localities together. Growing up in Central Virginia, I've always had a lot of friends in Madison, Culpeper, and all the areas. So I never considered myself just a Gordonville or Orange County guy. Got friends all over Central Virginia. So I naturally love this. Love the other region too, that we collaborate sometimes with the super region, a lot of people in all those counties. In the last 10 years, I've got to know a lot of people around the state. Well, all I'm saying is I'm going to miss everybody because I announced last week after 25 years I'm retiring. And when you get to be an old man, sometimes you retire. However, I don't feel old. The reason I'm retired is not because I feel old, it's because, my family needs me a little bit, and so of course they come first. I could easily go till I was 80. I plan to work otherwise than mayor until at least 80, so I'm not fading away anywhere. I just can't do both anymore. So I'm retiring. That's, last 15 years active at the state level, regional commissions. On that board for 10 years, president 3, VML 10 years, president of that organization. This isn't a big deal stuff. It's, I'm pointing out, this was my love. I did it because I liked it, wasn't because I get it. You know, you only get a point for this stuff, and the number of hours you put in don't pay for getting, oh, he did it this number of years. You know, it's rough, but if you enjoy it, it's not. So I never felt like I was working. It was wonderful. I got to meet a lot of people. Got 4,000 names in my contacts. Hard for me to put those with faces, few too many. But without the family pull on me, I would probably work another 8 years, another 2 terms, because I'm fine. You know, retired, just don't want people thinking I'm gotta quit because I'm getting senile. I've just got too much to do, so I'm stepping aside. I'll miss everybody. Of course, I'll be here till December. But you know, I just thought I'd say it to you, glad to hear it from somewhere else. And yeah, I guess this board, I've been active in this board for 25 years. Because if you count coming to the annual meeting, active 25. I've been on this board for 20 years, only 25 was coming to the annual meeting. I wasn't on the board yet. So I'm kind of aware of what we've been doing for a long time, and it was a hard decision, and then it wasn't, when it came down to it. Hard, and then I'm just gonna miss everybody. So I'll let it go with that and just mention that we had a groundbreaking yesterday for a new pool and park. We're a little town, and we did this with none of their money. I mean, we didn't have any money. So how you do a $6 million project with no money, even with grants you need, and our grant wasn't even 80-20, it was 50-50. So mayors, for me, going back to the early 70s have wanted to do this, just like mayors going back to the early 60s and 70s wanted to redo the airport. And they came to the same conclusion as me. We had no money. We finished rebuilding the airport last year. And so sometimes you can find a way, and we're gonna build the pool, groundbreaking yesterday, we're gonna build a park, and we didn't have any money. We did the 50-50, and we started reaching out to wealthy people, so we did it with donations and grants. And we raised enough almost immediately. I think in the first weekend, I raised almost $4,000 just getting on the phone, get that many pledges. So that was a match, that was a quick 800,000, and then we got the anchor grant of $1 million, and it went on from there. But when we actually priced it out, when we hired the planners with that initial money, their price said, you know, this was in the middle of COVID and all the 8% inflation, but the prices were 200% higher. Now, I'm never sure how we're doing 8% inflation, which everybody complains about. I'm not complaining about 8% inflation. All the people that are gouging and doubling and tripling and taking advantage of it, I'll complain about that till I die. 8 doesn't scare me anymore. But so they said, no, it's gonna be more like 6-7 million. I said, okay, we'll just write you a check for an extra 3-4 million. He got it. So it's been very difficult. We don't have it. Orange, town of Orange stepped up and helped their old buddy town of Gordonsville, 25,000, the county, 100,000. And we appreciate it. We worked a deal with the town of Orange where their citizens get in-town rates, Gordonsville in-town rates. But we still appreciate it because with the matching grant at 25 now, rather than working on an annual basis on that in-town rates, gives us an extra 25,000 match. So it gives us 50,000. So we appreciate all the help. Unfortunately, we still need millions. And I used to go around saying there was still going to be no taxpayer money. But we started forward because the problem was when we were waiting, trying to raise some money, the price didn't wait around. The price wasn't waiting around. So either we had to just forget it or we had to bite the bullet and do it. Now, I'm a conservative guy. 25 years, we've gotten more sound financially every year. That was tough for me to watch that right now we are committing town funds, but we're considering that to be a self-loan because we're still fundraising. We want to pay ourselves back because you know, we need money for emergency pipe, I mean, all sorts of stuff. The important stuff of why you're in town, not pools, which are nice, but that's not why we're in town. So we still got to raise a lot of money. And I hope people want to be listed on our plaque and also online forever. This isn't a little annual donation like all these people that come to you. This is as an investor, a builder of the pool and park. And you'll be, by amount, you'd be listed on there. And your great grandchildren will come there and swim in 100 years. And they say, that's my great grandmother on there that gave that. So it's kind of a big deal. And I think it's a kind of project that anybody, because about the children, it's not about Gordonsville. This is liability for us. We take, at least we're in the rate, at least 40, 50,000 a year on pool. So this is a commitment to us. This isn't an asset. This is a liability, actually. It is an asset for the children of Central Virginia. We get a ton. Might not get as many from Culpeper because they're going in that direction. We get a ton from southern Culpeper County, Greene, Madison, even into Spotsylvania, certainly Louisa, Albemarle, Savannah. So we get 5, 6, 7 counties that come because cities have public pools and localities have clubs. So we're the small town with the public pool. So we get them from all over and we underwrite it. Because we have such an easy time doing a budget, I have no problem throwing away 40,000 of you. We're just committed to it. And so, if y'all know any rich people, if y'all aren't or don't have any extra money, I'm not hitting on y'all individually, but all y'all know a couple of rich people that you can get them and sell them on this and say, you'll go down in history on our plaque. But it's for the children. It's for the kids. Kids need it. So many kids, you wouldn't even know it because your kids can swim. Most kids can't. And they never learn, no access at all to it. And I've seen a number, meaning more than 1 or 2 over the years. Big 6'4", All-American, all-conference basketball players, 6'5", super athlete, dying in 5 feet of water. He goes in the river to party, it's up to here. No problem, he can breathe, he can walk right back. He's an athlete. Takes 1 step, there's no bottom there. And he can't do anything at that point, he dies, because he can't swim. That kills me. It's amazing to me too. At this day and time, I could swim great at 4 years old. We had a pool. That a big guy like that can't swim. So anyway, and the final thing about that, all the kids are at risk if you support boys and girls clubs. The kids that don't have access to something like this in the summer, they're out on the streets. In school all year, they're doing great. They're tied in with their classmates. They're in structure and they're doing great. Summertime, there's nothing to do. It's hot. They're out in the streets, they're out in the neighborhood. Who else is hanging around? Maybe some 17, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds. They've got all sorts of good ideas for those 10, 11, 12-year-olds to do. They need to be with their friends at the pool every day and grow up in the same structure as their schools and grow up away from that stuff. So you also are directing youth in the right direction as well as learning how to swim. So it's a society thing as well as a safety issue. I'm sorry, but obviously I feel strong about it. I wouldn't commit Gordonsville $40,000 forever. But if y'all know any rich people, especially because we need still millions, not 5s and 10s. I'll take your 5s and 10s. We need millions. Thank you. That's it. Fun serving with you.
Can't follow that.
May I go ahead? So, Culpeper's kind of like everybody, we're getting into the event season, so getting ready for the 4th of July. Valor Awards coming up from the Chamber on July 11th, our 3rd Thursday concert. So come out to Culpeper for 3rd Thursday if you want to listen to a band and have some food and drink. And then let's see, National Neighborhood Night Out is August 6th. Hopefully y'all are doing some of that stuff as well. I know in Culpeper, the sheriff is doing something as well. The police department and sheriff's coordinating with that, so that's a good thing. We're still working on our bridge with Norfolk Southern, trying to get our bridge set and trying to get a flagger. We had a flagger set for us Friday earlier in the month, and then the Norfolk and Southern engineer that was supposed to be there decided to go on vacation, and we had to cancel 2 days beforehand. So that's on hold until we get that done. So probably by spring we'll be good with that. Other than that, we're just starting to prepare for paving this fall. Got big things.
Thank you so much for all of your service and for all the work, excellent work you do in Gordonsville. I remember as a kid, that was a long time ago, but Gordonsville wasn't always the best place for a kid to be in general. And now we drive through Gordonsville and it's just a wonderful, quaint, happy little place. So as you were talking, I was just thinking about, 40 years ago was a whole different place. Although I think there was a pool there at the time
Mhm.
that was a good place. But Gordonsville has just come so far, and you all should be so very proud. So thank you for your leadership.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, the other pool opened July 1st, 1956, and I was there.
Wow.
Where else would I be?
That's so awesome. But Orange County is business as usual. We did have our very large utility scale solar project went before the planning commission last week and was denied an SUP. So that was pretty big for Orange County. Not sure what they'll do next, but that was going to be almost 1,000 acres of solar on ag land right off of 522. So that has been unanimously denied by the planning commission. Of course, just like everybody else, we've wrapped up our budget cycle, got our budget in place, and just working on a few other projects. We have a new county attorney in place from Colorado, just waiting on her final approval to get her Virginia license in place. So we still have an interim attorney working in the meantime to help bridge the gap. But that's pretty much it for Orange County.
Okay, Town of Orange. Bob, congratulations on the work you've done. And I think you made the smart move to go ahead and start it. Because when people see stuff happen, and that's when they're ready to jump in. That's the way it works in churches and other organizations. You gotta be doing something to get money. That's a good move. Our water pipe will be coming online, our standpipe will be coming online, within the next 2 months. So that's a positive. We're paving, we get new sidewalks. We're working on an additional broadband provider for the town of Orange. Hopefully that'll be done within the next couple months. We did have to implement a burn ban today. I think Orange County did the same thing, but everybody knows we don't have any water. We've got water in the river, which is fairly good, but it's dry. I'd like to recognize Patrick for coming to the town of Orange a couple of weeks ago and visiting with Greg and I, going over the seeds and talking about some other issues. So appreciate you coming to us. Appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and I read this in the VTC magazine. It might be something the commission wants to think about, but Northern Virginia Commission is doing a data for trails. It would be a good thing to interface with the public and say, it's not something that's necessarily related to, some of our headlines, but it's something that they're working on and might, tie into the super Virginia thing. But that was in the VTC magazine. And that's all I got. Thank you.
I'm glad to be back. I've been out for almost 3/4 of the year. And for a variety of reasons, I'm very pleased to be here.
Very good.
And I'm here with Frank Cassidy, town manager, the first time we've come down together. And I don't know, we didn't decide who's gonna talk about what, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about the town council. We had we recently had the deadline passed for those running for elections in the November. We have 5 spots that are open, 4 are unchallenged. So there was really no competition. There will be virtually a turnover on the council. And how that affects the direction of the town remains to be seen. It's somewhat reactive to events that occurred in the past. People don't wake up and decide to get interest in town government until the bulldozer starts moving in their backyard, and they say, well, why didn't we get notified about this? And yet, so part of I guess the challenge will be to improve what a hackneyed phrase, perhaps, but transparency in an effort to our citizens, to kick them a little bit and tell them it's important to pay attention to what goes on in town hall. Because it always seems to be a little too late. and too little for them when major decisions are being made, when in fact, there have been many opportunities previous for them to be involved. So that will be a major objective, I think, probably of the new council, and I'm part of that. I'll be running for my second term. We are facing some very significant proposals. One called what we call Newtown as part of our comprehensive plan will, if approved, will provide about 365 new housing units and a massive new complex that will be unique to Warrenton. And so that will be coming up before the council, and it may change the look to our town as you drive in from Route 17 and Broadview Avenue. And so it will be facing some scrutiny at the council level, but we have no idea how that will go forward, but it was approved unanimously by the planning commission this past week. I think Frank may want to talk a little bit about, I think one thing he is a real expert on, that's our water and sewer situation and those plans as we look forward to improving our those systems, which are in bad need of repair. And we continue to face challenges regarding data centers. It seems to be we are the last defense on data centers as they encroach the western horizon. And so far, work has not begun at the Amazon site, and I can't say when it will begin, but the site plan has been approved, and even that now has been challenged. So the town is in a bit of transition. It's been a very interesting environment to work with, and I hope that with Frank, who's our new, I would call him new, but he's been at the job for a bit. Town manager has done a spectacular job in terms of improving our town, what I call town gown relationships with our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. That might change after January. Our CIP is huge. It's in total about $80 million over 6 years for our water and wastewater improvements. It's a product of just over time, not effectively addressing some upgrades. So that's what Mr. Semple is alluding to. It's just a 1950s plant that needs to come into this century. And I don't know if anybody's dealing with PFAS right now, but we're starting to stare down that. So a lot of the upgrades we have are addressing those future issues as well. Not to dwell on just money, but this is a big event for us this Friday. The Warrenton Town Limits is what we've been known for years. It was finally back this year. It's been out for 4 or 5 years. It's going to be at our pool at the wharf facility outside though, you know, and it's free for everybody, fireworks, etc., live entertainment. So we encourage everybody to show up Friday between 4 and 10 and have some fun and help us celebrate having Warrenton Town Limits back. So thank you. Congratulations.
Is that the 6th? What's the day though?
It's this Friday.
Oh, this
Yeah,
Friday,
this
oh,
Friday,
okay,
the
great,
28th.
okay, great. Okay.
Yeah. I thought you said that the 6th one.
No.
No, we're just starting.
Didn't want to show up on the wrong Friday.
It's been out for a while.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I'm Jennifer Campbell. I am a town councilor in the, planning commission member to the town of Madison, and currently running for mayor. There's another candidate, Dustin Hickman. And if I'll just report from what I do know, I'm not an official to speak, but I will share because I think this is public enough. But the town of Madison has 2 mayor candidates, 2 returning council members, and we'll have 2 new candidates that are running. And so it will give us a new multi-generational council. And I found it peculiar and exciting that it would be a female dominant board election. It would be 4 females, 2 males. So that'll be first and a huge change for the county and town of Madison. The 24-25 budget was approved this week for the town of Madison. And the planning commission, as we met, is regrouping to prioritize and align with some of the key changes that the town council board will be seeking and changing. So it's a lot of exciting things that will be happening. Will Lamar is doing well, but has decided to step back. And he is very proud to see that 2 contenders are excited to run. So we'll see how it goes. I know I'm excited. And as for you, Mr. Pointer, I grew up, my grandmother was actually was in Gordonsville, right outside of Gordonsville, within the Louisa County side.
Okay.
But, very well known in the community, and I swim in that pool and I own our land now, so Gordonsville is very special, and I thank you for the change that you brought to, even your committee members have brought to the region, because it is definitely something I think every community has looked at as a leader in changes, and Culpeper's come very far. My parents have always worked here in Culpeper, but Gordonsville and Culpeper are very special to me, so congratulations, and good
Thanks.
luck with not having so much to do.
We'll see how that goes. I do notice that there are a lot more Christmas lights in Central Virginia
There are.
than there was a number of years ago. People get tired of hearing about Gordonsville.
Well, each town will have their own thing, but you definitely are the leaders.
Thank you.
I am running for reelection. That's as bad as I'm going. It's too unselfish. But there's more important things at this point. We did do a competition bid for the development of the program plan for the first phase of our Virginia Main Street program. We awarded that, the contract for, Mead and Hunt, their local, I think their Haymarket location. We're waiting for our, attorney to do the contract review, and we'll be signing up the contract, and we'll take about 6 months to do the program plan. That is significant because it moves us into the construction phase with VHCD, which will be the first time for us. So pretty excited about finally getting the Main Street program to a point where you can visually see things happening. Get a lot of attention because they don't see things happening. So it's important to get there. This is our first year for recognizing hometown heroes. We've gotten our banners, and now we're designing the hangers for the banners. So real happy about that. And then recently, the American Legion has brought a program to the town that we've adopted. It's called Be the One. Yeah, we might already be aware of that program. It's predominantly vet related to health concerns, being trained on how to recognize, just in having conversation with veterans, and having the ability to recognize that they need help. And we have a network to offer that help. The last thing is, Patrick, I've seen a hazardous recovery plan chart, I think, and specifically, obviously, was zeroed in on the Remington agenda. With the storm drainage program that we've kicked off, that's going to be very successful. U.S. ACE, Army Corps of Engineers, the lead of the team comprising of VDOT, DEQ, DCR. We had a big meeting with the Corps team, as well as some others that support the study, such as USDA, PEC. We're reaching out to federal level camps like Wexham and Warner in respect to grant opportunities with them. The idea is to get as many support opportunities having to do with grants and specific to this study, in order to be able to capitalize on resources and grant opportunities without just depending on one or two. It's much easier to spread the wealth, so to speak. But I think it would be prudent to add this storm drainage study to that chart in respect to what the town of Remington's agenda is. There's, I think, 8 there already.
Yeah, absolutely. As a strategy in the hazard mitigation plan, I mean, that thought's already crossed our mind internally, but yeah, it should be in there.
I'm saying, I thought I knew you were recommending. And that's it.
Sounds great.
Only thing of, I think, of regional work value in terms of discussion is PFAS, PFOA that Frank mentioned earlier. And we've done a study of all of our well water, surface water, and in Fauquier County, and we have a number of sources that are not compliant with the new regs. Estimate is somewhere around $50 million just to filter, to do the PFAS filtering. So we're studying all kinds of possible ways. It might be cheaper just to buy everybody a bottle of water, I don't know, and let them shower in PFAS, but it's a big deal that we're all gonna have to face, and we don't yet have it quite understood. Yeah. And we've had a lot of personnel changes, but Janelle can talk about all that.
We have hired a director of human resources. That's great. Starts at the end of the month. We're looking for a director of social services. If anybody wants to pass any candidates my way. We're working on with bond council, getting ready to draw down some debt for 3 major projects: Taylor Middle School, Oprah Water, and Central Sports Complex. And that's just daily work.
Well, Mayor Pointer, congratulations to you first and foremost, and because in your honor, I'll start with the pool. We have a partnership with the town of Culpeper to construct our first public swimming pool and awarded contracts for its construction at the last board meeting. So took us a couple tries on bidding, but ultimately we bid it out as 2 separate contracts, one for the building and infrastructure and one for the pool itself. That seemed to be a lot more cost effective. So we'll be breaking ground on that sometime later this year. Other than that, I guess we did cut the ribbon on some state park lands. The state did fund purchase of some properties in Culpeper County to become a state park. So excited about the development of that. And other than that, it's normal business dealing with data center proposals and other such things.
Have you announced your retirement to this group?
I have not, I don't think formally, but I do plan to exit after 37 years in Culpeper as of January 31st of 2025.
But President, you guys are both still very young men, so.
Young enough, not young, but young enough. Young enough.
But I said, I was John on the call the other day, just won't get into everything we talked about, but I said, I heard that rumor, but I was gonna bring it up, so. But certainly an issue, you've always been great for me to reach out and get some good advice. Gonna miss you, we're gonna pull from that knowledge so you don't escape when we wanna seek out those who've done things and done them well, and maybe some opportunities to improve the communities, but you also love beyond boards.
I get calls from all over the state all the time. I always tell them I don't know.
I will ask you about your car's extended warranty when we call you, so. Broadband, I won't spend a lot of time on that. I know that could be a touchy subject depending on the community. Our one of the 2 ISP providers, Fireflies, all over the place, probably like their name, which is a good thing. They cover most of the county. There's another provider, Brightspeed, that we'll see. They said they're moving along. I'm surprised the HCD has marked no monthly inspection month after month, and they say they're meeting their MOU, but that's the HCD's right to say if they're conforming or not. So be interested to see if that project slides back into Firefly. I guess everybody is still waiting on the VATI 2024 announcement. I don't know when they're going to do that. It seems like they're tying that with BEAD to make their decisions. It seems an odd way to do it, but that's the latest understanding I have for VATI 2024.
Is that for Ethlyn?
Yes. Yeah, near to our heart, and we keep telling them, whether your ears are burning or not, whether we're talking with Verizon with BEAD or VATI with Firefly, like, hey, there may be opportunity to, I mean, we're similar, especially in that region. I think it could be a lot of improvements for citizens and some other opportunity for tourism and things to draw people to those normal rural and quiet spots. Smart scale, as just mentioned, we weren't in that round, but we have some approved projects. One is finally on the way. I think they talked about it years ago when I was on the board. That's the R cut. If you're traveling southbound on 29, there in the Shelby location. We think that's going to be a major improvement. As you know, generally there's usually sad statistical data that they finally look at to award those projects, but we definitely think there's going to be a safety improvement. If you continue south, you won't escape it. Like we have one near our county border, and then you enter Greene County, it's right there. So please take that as an opportunity to stop, charge your car there at Sheets, or buy a sandwich. The Etland Tower is almost completed. That will pretty much round out our radio project, which was a joint effort with Greene County. We're ahead of schedule on that. Really, we're holding last payment until they do some generator startup checkout and things of that nature. And then we'll move on to testing and then go live. So that's pretty exciting for our first response community and a lot of folks that don't realize the signal improvement that that's going to have for those who may need to call in their time of need. We just learned the other day that our school resource officer grants were successful. We had, I think it was 1 or 2 active that were funded. We have 4 schools in Madison County. Now this will completely put an SRO in each and every school. That was a board goal. Captain McKnight, I give her and Major Estes credit for pursuing that this year and making that a priority. So that's good news. Hopefully you never need to use it, but it's a good impact for school-age children to really understand that folks in that position as public servants, that it's a great job, a great way to serve your community beyond just the things like we do at this table. So we think it's also good mentoring, if you will. Comprehensive plan is just started under review. That was given to the Planning Commission, and then there was a work group formed consisting of 2 board members, 2 planning commissioners. Patrick, thanks to your team, Miss Little has been very forward and diligent in that. We think we've got it at a good point now for review. This work group will take and comments from the group and Planning Commission and others, and then formulate, discuss, and have those changes made so we can keep working and hopefully have that adopted by the end of the year. But that's to be determined as far as an adoption date, because it does have to get to the Board of Supervisors for their review. Our EMS renovation project, I know renovations can sometimes not be the preferred, but you have to balance your budget and do what works. But that project will officially start July 1st. We gave the notice to proceed, so we're pretty excited about that. We'll get out of our rental space probably sometime in February or so of this next year. We will have to rebid our park project. We put that out as a phase 1. And it seems to be a little difficult at times if you have a building component, which could be just a concession stand and bathrooms, part of your grading plan. It seems to complicate who's able to do what. So right now we're working on rescoping and looking to rebid, hopefully starting around September, no later than October. And at least get something going out there. As I believe you said earlier, you get something going, folks see it, and then maybe their bank accounts will open up. So we want to pull on that philanthropic heart. And I'll just plug a few of our events, our fairs coming up, July 17th through the 20th. Usually our demolition derby is the biggest night. So if you have a junk car, the engine runs, bring it on down, have some fun with it. You get to crash it legally and, have a good time, eat some cotton candy while you're there. And then last, our annual Taste of the Mountain Festivals, where we shut down Main Street. Thank you to the town. August 31st will be that. So if you have interest, it's usually a lot of craft and different vendors and things set up. You can hear music, you can generally see car shows, magic show, whatever's there, or shops and towns that's on Main Street as well. So that's what's going on in Madison.
I love that event. I've been many times.
Congratulations, and so many years taking care of your community and others surrounding, and making the wise decision to do what you need to do for your family. So
yeah, no real choice. I'll miss
missed.
everything.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Rappahannock County, thank God for the rain that did allow us to cut our hay, and now we've got some fruit and fresh vegetables. If anybody's looking, the peaches will be out very shortly. That's much more fun to talk about than sidewalks. The one part that I'm getting more involved in is our emergency services. And there's a requirement that I think is the end of November, correct me if I'm wrong. For pharmaceuticals, you won't be getting them from your hospitals. You're actually gonna have to figure out a way to purchase and maintain securely and license all the meds that the advanced medical people use. And so we're trying to figure out what we're doing. Would love to know what other counties are doing, how you figured out that you're gonna manage that. We have some good ideas, I think, but always looking to learn. That was our fiber is still unknown. We haven't seen any action in Rappahannock County or the other surrounding counties that are in the regional batting grant with us, but we're still hoping it's gonna happen.
Thank you for your leadership here. You've been chair a few times since I've been here, so appreciate that. And executive committee
Coming around.
doing those things, so some of us don't have to. We are about ready probably to ink a contract with a design firm for a courthouse. Either expansion or new building, so more discussion about that on Monday, and might not be quite ready for signature. We might announce who we're talking to anyway, so that's coming, and then all the work comes after that. We've had a great partnership with our judges so far, so hopefully we'll keep it that way without them telling us what to do, but we're asking for their input, trying to keep it on that. County and town had a public hearing with the Commission on Local Government for the town's massive 4-acre expansion. Looks like that's going to go through. So the philanthropic development that is Rush River Commons will move from phase 1 to phase 2. Phase 1, the food pantry is opening, I think tomorrow. So that's only made possible by a local individual who you would love to know, who underwrote the project and has a $1 a year lease for the food pantry. And then July 4th, nobody mentioned that. A lot of you guys have great July 4th celebrations. If you don't want to go to those, come out to Rappahannock County, the fire department, Sperryville Fire Department. There's a great event at Benvenue Farm. There's a beautiful setting. And then our third Thursday concerts, next one's July 18th in Sperryville. So come on out and enjoy that. Spend some money. Go home.
Where's your concert?
Concert is in the River District, which has been totally redeveloped here recently, so it's worth the trip to go there.
Fordham area or where?
Behind where the schoolhouse is, so it's where the old apple packing shed is. Give me a call, get you, I'll lead you right there from the county line.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Jeff?
I don't have a whole lot to add, but I'll throw in the congratulations. I've had the pleasure of being at the groundbreaking for the pool, and it's nice to see long time start to become real. So that's fun. I've been appreciating the partnerships we've been working on with our towns. I'm talking with Orange about some town of Orange about some water supply issues, and that seems to be on a good footing. We're in court on our big wilderness crossing development. That seems to be many months or a year out. The opponents are doing a good job of just dragging that along. So that's a little bit frustrating to the board, who think that that's the way our comprehensive plan has been set up for a long time. The idea is to develop in the Route 3 eastern corridor so that we can be more preservation minded in the western part of the county. We've got to grow to be successful, but it's how you grow that's more important. So we're sort of working on that. Project-wise, we just adopted our CIP. In that include a community recreation gymnasium facility. We've been inspired by Culpeper and others, so we're looking to place something in Booster Park. That is sort of our home of recreation. We have some other facilities that we're looking at as well in other parts of the county. That's our sort of primary focus. We're also moving forward to planning the county's first county-owned constructed fire station. We'll be in partnership with Mine Run Volunteer Fire Department to build something in the Unionville area, the intersection of 20 and 522, which is very centrally located. And that'll be a combination station, Mine Run Fire and county EMS. Of course, all of our EMS workers are firefighters as well, so we'll be responding in cooperation with our volunteers. So those projects are our biggest projects. We have a CTE project in there. We've signaled to the school board that we're very supportive of moving forward with a new facility there. Again, we've been taking visits to Culpeper and seeing that facility. Probably aren't going to be doing something quite like that, but the concepts are valid for us. And a little bit of division on our school board is exactly how to execute on that. So once they kind of figure out what they want to do, our board has the financial means to help them with their plan within parameters that we've communicated to that. And then we do have a government center project on the list that's a little bit further out. We've been doing a lot of renovations in town of our existing facilities, which needed a lot of attention. But we've almost completed all of those to buy us the next several years while we kind of bridge to that potential facility, which we co-locate with our new public safety building. So, which isn't new anymore. Actually, it's like 3 years old. So you got to keep moving on these things. So that's sort of how that's working. I think the board is working pretty well together. Many new faces on that board. Went through their first budget. This is their first CIP. Now they're getting together around our next big economic development projects. Thanks for allowing me to update.
Absolutely. And everyone, I tell you, I kind of missed my opportunity when I jumped right into the meeting at the beginning because I wanted to have a moment. I still am shocked that Megan Taylor is not with us. What a wonderful friend and, cohort of all ours on this group for a long time. It's funny, gosh, I always loved her to death, but when someone's gone, golly, you feel like you lost your best friend, not just someone you saw at the meeting, because she really was a wonderful person. So I'm still in shock about that. But in addition to acknowledging how important she was to this group and a wonderful chair, I was going to have a moment of silence at the beginning of the meeting. And so if y'all will join me right now in a moment of silence for Megan. Thank you. And with that said, anything else you want to throw in, Patrick? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Thanks, Rick. I'm looking for a gavel. No gavel here. We're adjourned. We wouldn't have one in the Orangefield, but I bought one. So I'm taking it.